What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm Edward Lewis, publisher of BruinsSportsport.com. He's Joey Kaufman, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here tonight at UCLA, where the Bruins just wrapped up day number 12 of spring ball. And before we really get into all the news, notes, and observations tonight, we got to touch on the Social Jamabo situation. The five-star running back who signed with UCLA in February was arrested on a myriad of charges down in Texas. And Jim Mora didn't offer up a comment today, saying he didn't think it'd be fair. Because he doesn't know enough about the situation yet. You did a little bit of digging today, to find out, what was going on with the Jamabo situation. Tell me what you learned.
The person I spoke with at the Kaufman County DA's office, she said that they hadn't received the case yet. And at this point in time, he's posted bond and he's been released. So the question is whether Kaufman County is going to file charges against him, which I think that is probably going to be what this thing hinges on from this point forward, is whether he's going to be charged with anything or is he just going to be arrested and going to have to go through some sort of educational program or diversion or just some sort of type of thing where they give you an online class and you take online training, that's the end of it, or is this going to be something where he's going to face charges and face potential jail time? Because one of the things that he's being looked at as evading police is, I think I read, as a felony in the state of Texas. So that's going to be an interesting thing to look out for, is whether he ends up being charged with anything.
I believe the Dallas Morning News said it might be a 6-month to 2-year prison sentence if he's convicted of it. So a lot of things that UCLA needs to clear up and needs to find out before they really actually comment on this situation, which is what Morris said. So getting into practice notes, injured guys came back today. Alex Van Dyke and Eldridge Massington didn't come back fully, but they at least participated more and more in individuals. Darren Andrews, Mossy Johnson, and Priest Willis all came back fully on 11-on-11. So UCLA has been really, really healthy this spring, and they're only 3 practices away from getting out of this thing without any big injuries.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a single bad injury, where most of these injuries that we've been talking about are little hangnails, essentially. The guys will be back after a couple of practices, and not to mention the entire summer. So that's been, I think, a big break for them, is the fact that nobody's really had a serious knee injury, nobody's had a big ankle injury, nothing's going to require surgery. And it looks like a lot of the guys that they were expected to get back, like Manfro and those guys, are going to be they're on track to play in the fall.
Wouldn't be a Cover 2 recap without discussing the quarterback situation, so let's get into that. All 4 took 11-on-11 reps. Woolard and Faithful got most of the bulk of the 11-on-11 reps. I thought all 4 essentially look like they've looked all spring. I mean, is that kind of what you saw?
I didn't see anything differently than we haven't seen before. It's interesting. They keep wanting to give guys reps to increase sample size, to get a better chance to evaluate. But, I mean, to some point, to some degree, guys are what they are. And I feel like we're 12 practices in, he's continued to look the best every day with the ability. He had one deep downfield throw, I think it was Kenny Walker, where it was the crowd one. It was a beautiful 45-yard-ish throw, and it landed softly in the hands as he was going down the sidelines. And I think you mentioned last week his ability to stay in the pocket is the best on the team. This happens with Jerry a lot, and happens with some of the other guys, is that immediately there's a rush, and instead of looking downfield or maybe moving within the pocket, they kind of turn and start running toward the sidelines. And I think Rosen, even today during the 7-on-7s, which isn't the best indicator, he mostly got 7-on-7 reps today, so this is what we're going off. But there were a couple times where nothing looked good, so he threw it down to the checkoff guy kind of in the flats, and you'll see it during 11-on-11s. He did this a couple times last week where there's nothing there, and he takes off scrambling. He maybe gets 5-6 yards, and he'll slide. So what's impressive about him is you'll have those big 45-yard throws, but he'll also have the plays where he concedes this isn't going to be a big play. I'm just going to get out of this with a couple of yards. So I think that's the impressive thing. There are very few negative plays with him.
We were discussing off camera who our top performers would be, and we both kind of agreed Rosen would be one of them. But let's get into the other top performers of the day. It was kind of an interesting practice. A lot of one-on-ones, a lot of 11-11, so a lot of top performers. Give me your first one.
I think Paul Perkins had a really good day. I mean, it's kind of an obvious candidate, but he had a couple runs where he just took off for 40, 45 yards and broke off big plays and hitting a hole and kind of carrying it through. I think he's continued to look good this spring.
I'm going to start with a cheap one here. The D-line in general looked great to me. Jacob Tuioti-Mariner, Matt Dickerson, Tack McKinley, and Deion Hollins specifically. I think all 4 recorded sacks today, with Dickerson and Hollins recording multiple ones. So they had a really nice day, especially on the pass rushing front. I think that's why you're going to hear a lot from Moore if you watch the post-game press conference, that the defense looked far ahead of the offense today, and it's because of that pass rush. So I think they deserve some ink here. And the other guy that deserves some run here is Aaron Sharp, the converted wide receiver, or converted quarterback to wide receiver, is really starting to come on strong. He worked out a kick returner today, and you finally started to see that track speed. And then in one-on-one, he had a couple catches over Nate Metters and Dwight Williams where it's like, okay, this kid's coming along. He may not be, a starter, this season or anything like that, but you could tell he's got some upside and he's flashing some potential. You had one other running back, top performer.
Even with Sharp, I feel like he's a fluid route runner, and even if you never play in the games, he's at least a guy in practice where DBs are going to have to go up and face him, a bigger receiver who can run routes. So he's just, I think, more use for them at receiver. Another guy I thought played well today was Craig Lee. It seemed like he was taking more of the second-team reps. Usually Nate Starks kind of does that. But he looked fluid runner, hitting the holes. I think, in general, pretty much it doesn't really matter what running back almost at times you put in there. With this offensive line, they're going to – the way they spread the field out and they have guys run, there's generally guys are going to be able to hit a hole.
That'll wrap up our coverage of Day 12. You can follow Joey's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Joey R. Kaufman. You can follow me on Twitter at Edward_Lewis. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.